A villain, a friend, or an anti-hero? Rodan for sure is a chaotic, neutral kaiju greatly loved by the fandom, and especially remembered for the sacrifice he made for Godzilla. Rodan, the swift master of the air and earth, has appeared in numerous Godzilla movies and series, both directly and indirectly. In this video, we'll cover the history of his direct appearances, along with his origin and powers. We will also compare his powers with Godzilla and King Kong, and discuss his future in the Godzilla universe. So, just keep watching.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Tracing the origins of Rodan. Rodan is a Pteranodon kaiju who made his first appearance in 1956 in the eponymous movie Rodan, in which two individual rodents, a male and a female, were featured. The Showa series explained that Rodan is a mutated Pteranodon who lived deep underground and grew to a massive size. In the debut film, the two rodents were awakened by nuclear radiation and emerged from Mount Aso in Kyushu. In the Heisei Era, in the Godzilla-Verse Mechagodzilla 2 film, Rodan lived on Avdanoa Island and underwent mutation due to the nuclear waste that the Soviets had dumped on the island. His origins remained unclear in Godzilla Final Wars film of the Millennium series, where he was controlled by the Zillions. Its theater program explained that Rodan is a Pteranodon reawakened by environmental disturbances on the Earth, and as per Shinichi Wakasa, the chief modeler of monsters, Rodan is the same character as before and not a new monster. In the Monsterverse, Rodan is described as a reptilian firebird and given the Titan designation by Monarch. He is a giant pterosaur-like ancient creature who was discovered in 1991 inside a volcano on Isla de Mara in Mexico. However, his exact species remains unknown. The terrifying saga of Rodan. Rodan has had a vast number of appearances since the Showa Era, hence we will briefly cover his history through all the periods. Starting with the Showa Era, an egg was preserved in Mount Aso and mutated due to radiation from the atomic bomb test. When it hatched, baby Rodan emerged from it. He broke the eggshell and quickly matured. Rodan flew and prowled over the Pacific Ocean. He was sighted in China, the Philippines, and Hong Kong, and dubbed as a UFO by the confused masses. He finally touched down in Fukuoka, where the JSDF confronted him. Rodan generated powerful winds that blew away the JSDF deployed forces. A female Rodan suddenly appeared to assist him. Both Rodans decimated the JSDF and the city, then returned back to Mount Aso, where they nested. The JSDF triggered the volcano with missiles, and both Rodans perished in the molten lava. 8 years later, a single Rodan reappeared from the volcano, but it was unclear whether he was the same Rodan from 1956 or the offspring of the two. He flew to Yokohama, where he met Godzilla. Then both the monsters engaged in a fight. Meanwhile, King Ghidorah appeared in the Kurobi Valley and began terrorizing Japan. Mothra approached the fighting duo and persuaded them to end their rivalry and help defeat King Ghidorah. Both the monsters refused at first, but when Mothra went to fight alone, the monsters were inspired and took part in the battle against King Ghidorah. Rodan allowed Mothra to ride on his back, and the latter spat silk on King Ghidorah while Godzilla held him. Together they defeated King Ghidorah. In 196X, the Zillions abducted Rodan when he was hibernating on a cliffside. They took him alongside Godzilla to Planet X to fight King Ghidorah, who was terrorizing the planet. They defeated King Ghidorah, but he was being controlled by the Zillions, who actually intended to take over the Earth and unleash all the monsters. Humanity soon broke the mind control and defeated the Zillions, after which Rodan and Godzilla fought King Ghidorah and tackled him into the ocean. King Ghidorah escaped while Rodan and Godzilla began living on Monster Island. By the end of the 20th century, he was captured and contained on Monsterland along with other monsters with much freedom. The Kilak aliens took control of Monsterland and sent the monsters to attack major cities. Rodan attacked Moscow and then went to attack Tokyo alongside Godzilla and others. When the Kilaks lost their control over the monsters, the latter attacked them, and then the Kilaks released King Ghidorah. Rodan tried to attack Ghidorah with powerful winds, but Ghidorah beat him with a gravity beam. Rodan simply watched from the side, but he was set on fire by the fire dragon released by the Kilaks. The Kilaks were eventually defeated, and Rodan returned to Monsterland with others to live in peace. In the Heisei Era, Rodan appeared in only one film entitled Godzilla-Verse Mechagodzilla 2, but also in the Godzilla Island television show and Get Going Godzilla Land OVAs. In the OVAs, Rodan was Godzilla's childhood friend and lived on the Godzilla Land island with other monsters. In the television show, he lived in the year 2097 on Godzilla Island with all the other monsters and helped the G-Guard protect the island and the Earth from the Zillions. Now let's explore the movie. A team of scientists had arrived on Adenoa Island in the Bering Sea to investigate a pteranodon fossil unearthed by Russian petroleum workers. They were informed about a pteranodon nest with an intact egg and a hatched one. The scientists, impressed by the specimen, began to load it in their helicopter when suddenly a pteranodon appeared and roared. The scientists identified him as Rodan. Rodan attacked the scientists, who then ran and got cornered on the edge of a cliff. A blue blast from the ocean nearly struck Rodan, then Godzilla surfaced and began a battle with Rodan. Rodan fought with his aerial prowess, but Godzilla overpowered him. Godzilla stumped Rodan into the ground and repeatedly blasted the atomic breath. Meanwhile, the scientists escaped with the egg. When Rodan appeared dead, Godzilla left and chased the helicopter back to Japan. The egg was studied, and a melody seemed to have a strange effect on the egg, after which it hatched and a Godzillasaurus emerged instead of a pteranodon. The United Nations Godzilla Countermeasures Center took care of the baby Godzilla and studied it for probable weaknesses of Godzilla. A group of psychic students sang a song to baby Godzilla, which in turn boosted the apparently dead Rodan. He experienced greater power and was revived as the crimson-colored fire Rodan. Rodan considered baby Godzilla as his brother and instantly flew to Japan to rescue him. The baby was being transported, but Rodan reached on time and intercepted the transportation. G-Force deployed the Mechagodzilla and Garuda, and Rodan took on the fight and held his ground, but Mechagodzilla's plasma grenade severely wounded him. On suffering repeated blasts, his chest shredded and blood poured out of his mouth. Godzilla arrived on the scene, but Mechagodzilla had combined with the Garuda to become Super Mechagodzilla, which then nearly killed Godzilla. Baby Godzilla let out a cry, on hearing which Rodan mustered his remaining strength and flew to Godzilla. He landed on top of Godzilla and transferred his life energy into him. Rodan sacrificed himself and revived Godzilla, who then quickly defeated Super Mechagodzilla and afterward adopted baby Godzilla to raise him in place of Rodan. In the Millennium Era, Rodan appeared in the Godzilla Final Wars. It was the year 20XX, and Rodan, along with other monsters, was being controlled by the Zillions, who executed their plan to take over the Earth and unleashed these monsters simultaneously in the major cities all over the world. Rodan was sent out to attack New York City. He first destroyed the plane of the United Nations Secretary General, then descended into the city. The Earth's Defense Force sent out its warship called the Rumbling that Rodan faced with his supersonic abilities, but he was suddenly teleported away by the Zillions. The Zillions had captured its monsters to earn the trust of the Earthlings, but their deceit was soon uncurtained by the EDF. The Zillions resorted back to re-releasing the monsters, and Rodan was once again sent to New York. While Rodan went on destroying the city, Godzilla was freed from his prison in Antarctica and eventually reached Mount Fuji. The Zillions sent out Rodan along with Anguirus and King Caesar to attack Godzilla. Rodan was flying overhead when he was hit by a curled-up Anguirus, whom Godzilla had sent flying with his tail. Rodan was knocked unconscious with a hit and came crashing down. Godzilla also knocked Anguirus and King Caesar unconscious, then stacked them atop Rodan and left. In the Monsterverse, Rodan physically appears in the Godzilla King of the Monsters film. Rodan was residing inside a volcano in Isla de Mara in Mexico in a state of suspended animation. By 1973, Monarch had become aware of Rodan's existence, and in 1991, they finally found him and made the Outpost 56 to study him. He remained dormant until 2019 when Emma Russell awakened him with her sonar device. Monarch's G-Team sent out fighter jets and the flying fortress of USS Argo to lure him into the vicinity of King Ghidorah, who had also been similarly awakened. An aerial fight broke out between both the flying monsters. Rodan was blasted into the sea with Ghidorah's gravity beam. With the latter turn of events, King Ghidorah emerged as the Alpha Titan and let out a roar that awakened all the monsters. Rodan, along with others, bowed before Ghidorah. He accompanied him to Washington, D.C. and attacked military forces. Ghidorah had to face Godzilla and Mothra, so he called out to Rodan to engage with Mothra in his battle. Both fought in the sky. Rodan burnt Mothra's wings with a magma that dripped from his wings, then pinned Mothra on a skyscraper for a final blow. But Mothra impaled him to his chest with her stinger. Rodan could no longer fight, but he was still alive. When Godzilla won the battle, Rodan appeared before him and roared. Godzilla gazed at him, which signaled Rodan to submit to Godzilla. After these events, Rodan continued his ancient rest in a volcano in Fiji. In the Reiwa Era, Rodan has briefly appeared in the Godzilla and I'm Home Chibi Godzilla series and the Godzilla Singular Point anime. In Godzilla, a monster hatched from an egg was named Rodan by Manila, a Godzilla Kaiju who protected and raised him. Rodan later came to take back his brother Rodan from Manila, and as a chibi, Rodan often visited Chibi Godzilla as his best friend. In the anime, flocks of Rodan were seen in Japan who caused immense havoc in 2030. We will soon discuss the possibility of Rodan's return, so keep watching.
That's a heat beam, the same as Godzilla's.
Rodan's terrifying arsenal of powers and abilities. Rodan's wings give him the ability to generate powerful gusts of wind, whether he flaps them in the air or on the ground. He flies at a supersonic speed that outruns the supersonic jets. His flights can also create shockwaves that are capable of destroying cities. The Showa rodents could also fire jets of compressed air from their mouth. This wind breath could destroy cities and send trucks flying. But it has not been seen since the debut film. Heisei Rodan had armor plating on his chest with rows of sharp spikes on it. He could also transfer his life energy into other creatures and had telepathic abilities with which he communicated with baby Godzilla and pinpointed his location to rescue him in distress. Millennium Rodan also had the chest spikes. Rodan is also able to withstand Godzilla's atomic breath and King Ghidorah's gravity beam to a certain level. Fire Rodan showcased a new ability known as the uranium heat beam. Rodan, alongside this ability after he had been exposed to radioactivity by Godzilla alongside the radioactive waste on Adenoa Island. With this, he was able to emit a radioactive beam from his mouth. Besides, Rodan also has a sharp beak and sharp talons that are effective for melee attacks. In the Monsterverse, Monarch had described Rodan to be biovolcanic, suggesting that he has an internal combustion system of magma that flows throughout his body, and the magma can reach a temperature of up to 1200 degrees Celsius or 2192 degrees Fahrenheit. This magma leaks through the ends of his wings, in which he had to burn Mothra's wings. And as per the Godzilla King of the Monsters, the official movie novelization, Rodan could also cause volcanic eruptions by merely flying over the volcanoes. In the manga adaptation of Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, Fire Rodan was able to absorb small animals like birds and fishes into his body and consequently restore his health and vitality. While in the Godzilla Domination video game in the Game Boy Advance, his torso had specialized organs that could release a radioactive mist for 2 seconds. In the same game, he also had an atomic heat ray that was shot like fireballs. Comparative might. Where does Rodan stand among Monsterverse's legendary titans? Let's revisit Godzilla and King Kong's abilities before we contest him with Rodan. Godzilla is clearly a formidable foe with his incredible strength, durability, intelligence, and bioatomic nature. He can pierce his opponent's skin and is aware of their presence by sensing their body temperature. He is also amphibious and has high heat resistance. He can also absorb energy and turn into burning Godzilla, who can control thermonuclear pulses. Yet his ultimate weapon remains the atomic breath. Rodan is also intelligent, and although he is not amphibious, he can survive underwater for some time. Yet it is quite clear where this battle would sway. If it were the Godzilla from the Showa Era, the fight could have been a draw, or Rodan might have even won the fight after a long jostle. But the way things are currently, Rodan would face a hard time in a fight. He can gain an upper hand by flying into the air, yet his attacks would not be much effective. The fact that Rodan did not last against King Ghidorah, who is no less powerful than Godzilla, and that he bowed before Godzilla clearly shows the power dynamics between the two. Hence, Godzilla would take the win here. Now we have King Kong. King Kong also boasts of strength and intelligence in addition to agility. His Quake Slam causes earthquakes, and he can jump to great heights. His one and only special weapon is the battle axe made of Godzilla's dorsal plate. A fight between King Kong and Rodan would be an interesting watch. Rodan would put up a decent fight. His flying ability along with his magma-dripping wings would be a wonderful advantage. King Kong can get injured with a magma or Rodan's talons. Rodan is also agile to evade King Kong's attacks. Kong's Quake Slam would also be useless against Rodan, so the fight would take a decisive turn depending on Kong's use of the battle axe. In case Rodan flies low, just enough for Kong to grab him even by jumping, Rodan would be led to his defeat. King Kong is also highly intelligent, and a punch in the weak point of Rodan would be really effective. Besides, Rodan can be stabbed, and the battle axe is perfect for such blows. Overall, despite a close and interesting fight, the battle would sway in King Kong's favor. Mind-blowing appearance of Rodan in other forms of media. We will briefly cover Rodan's major appearances in books and comics, starting with the books. In Godzilla Saves America, a monster showdown in 3D, Rodan's nest was on Mount Rushmore, where he met Godzilla, who was traveling to confront King Ghidorah. Rodan cautioned him, but Godzilla didn't stop. In Godzilla, a Monster Island, Rodan fought against Mechagodzilla, who was there to collect a mysterious cocoon, but Rodan didn't win the fight. In Godzilla-Verse Gigan and the Smog Monster, Rodan suffered against the Smog Monster and was helped by Godzilla. Rodan later returned to favor in Godzilla's fight against Gigan. In Godzilla Monster Apocalypse, Rodan emerged from Paektu Mountain in 2005 and flew to Beijing. The Chinese released Hedorah, who killed Rodan. This was Rodan the First. Later, flocks of Rodan were seen preying on European refugees. In Godzilla Project Mechagodzilla, after Rodan the First's death, a Rodan the Second flew through Kyushu at a later time. By the mid-2030s, there were multiple Rodans in Rome and North America. Now, in the comics, in Godzilla King of the Monsters, Rodan was controlled by Dr. Oniyama to drop bombs with his talons. He also fought with Godzilla, but was defeated after he had his wings ripped off and burnt with the atomic breath. In Godzilla Kingdom of Monsters, a baby pterosaur had hatched from an egg in a crystal and grown rapidly. He terrorized Russia and was dubbed Rodan. He flew to Washington, D.C. via Paris and fought with Godzilla, but was again defeated. In Godzilla Legends, a giant egg was taken to an Okinawa military base and Rodan arrived to retrieve it. The egg was relocated by Dr. Holder, whose son later took the egg to his school, where Rodan came. The egg hatched and Rodan was allowed to leave with his baby. Rodan had also appeared in different issues of Godzilla Rulers of Earth, Godzilla Oblivion, Godzilla, and other comics. The future of Rodan in the Godzilla universe. Can Rodan have graphic novels centered around him in the Monsterverse and be featured in the upcoming movies? His only Monsterverse appearance was in King of the Monsters. Rodan is not a threat to Godzilla's alpha status, but he has the potential to aid Godzilla in his fights, which is pretty relevant for future Monsterverse content. Godzilla vs. Kong avoided Rodan, and Godzilla vs. Kong, the new empire, might do the same. Moreover, Monarch Legacy of Monsters has created chances of Rodan's appearance by mentioning Mexico, Rodan's resting place, and Monarch's stolen files and Bill Randa's handwriting. Rodan's appearance is anticipated even though there are slim chances. Marvelous verdict. Rodan has an intriguing personality. He mocks his enemies but also has the heart to pair up with them in adversity. He hates humans, but only because humans hate him too. He is loyal, and his sacrifice is the movie's most touching scene. Rodan is an exciting character, and everyone would surely love to see him again in upcoming movies, especially if the iconic Godzilla-Rodan duo of the Showa Era could be recreated.
If you enjoyed this video, click on the like button and comment below about which other movie reviews you would want to watch. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.